In this case, they weren't ahead, so it was just trying for something. So it was good to see them make a decisive shot call, but they're still growing into being the decisive team that's usually needed to win games in this meta.
That's right. Well, we are into game 2. Draft right now. Jin Air on the blue side, and it will be a Kindred ban once again. You have a carry jungler like Chaser, you probably don't want him to have that. Now, interestingly, we talked about the possible prevalence of Graves jungle or Graves top in this particular matchup, because that was what Trace had been playing a lot in solo queue, but it's not going to happen. MF ban coming through, however.
Love to see some Graves. Chaser, that's what I want to see. I want to see Chaser move away from the Rex side. I want to see him return to what he's known for. It's carry jungling. Nidalee is a champion that I'm not the biggest fan of on patch 524, but still certainly in the realm of possibility, and specifically champions like Graves can be really powerful carries from the jungle.
All right, Fiora's still up. Was banned last game, and that would be a bit interesting. Jin Air trying to prioritize a Kalista that fell all the way through the draft in the last game.
I like Kalista with double ADs. For example, when we saw Corki coming through from SKT, the Kalista from Bang made a lot of sense in that scenario. It's just that her lack of siege means that I think you need to pick up the siege from one of the many AD champions that are viable right now in mid.
Yeah, and they are actually just going to grab the Kalista right off the bat, so definitely a big priority on that champion. A bit surprisingly, they have let that Fiora through. That is something that Jin Air banned in the first game of this series. Very interesting pivot. Trundle's still up too.
What a powerful pick. Misfortune was one of the bans this game, but true AD carries, so excluding Kindred, all are available right now. Maybe we'll finally see that Ezreal we've spoken so much about.
Yeah, Lissandra could be the takeaway here.
Lissandra Lucian would be a decent 2 picks coming through.
Yeah, lots of choices, to be sure. So, waiting on this one, but Lissandra does seem overwhelmingly likely, considering Longzhu did ban it out last game, and it is a big flex pick here for Jin Air. And Lissandra Trundle. These were 2 Longzhu bans last game, so clearly putting a premium on these picks in the draft phase.
Coming back to IM Katowice, whatever was able to do on the red side was one of the highlights of that tournament for me was Flex City. It was all about 3 or 4 flex picks, and in this first rotation, we already have 2 flex picks, 2 true flex picks picked up already.
Yeah, just because we mostly see Trundle in support does not mean Trundle cannot be played top right now. He absolutely can be in certain matchups. Can be advantageous, but that means that the Fiora does fall to the second round of the draft, and might indicate the pick here from Solon, a player, I would say, more likely than Trace to play that Fiora. Certainly a powerful carry, more in his style.
And Fiora is one of those carry tops that, and to some degree, it's kind of an accurate statement to say that tanks are back in the game. Specifically, top lane tanks have been making their way back in, so that's forced out some of those top lane carries. But Fiora's percentage maximum HP true damage from her passive, and just the fact that she outscales almost every top lane matchup means that she's still relevant as this top lane carry.
Well, we are going to see the Rek'Sai here, unfortunately, Papa Smithy. I wanted something else, but to be fair, it is smartest right now for Longzhu to take jungle AD carry, because that means they can still flex any of their picks to any position effectively. We don't know what their mid is. We don't know necessarily that the Corki could be mid. The Trundle could be top or support. We really have no idea.
Remember, Samsung did play top lane Rek'Sai.
Okay.
It's not going to be a top lane Rek'Sai.
It's not going to be a top lane Rek'Sai this game, but in order to keep them in the dark, we won't have a fancy jungle pick from Chaser, which definitely a letdown. Looking forward to seeing some fun Jungle Graves games myself.
You know this, Monte Cristo. It's a long season. We got time. There will be jungle carrying from Chaser. Bet on it.
But I wanted it now, damn it. Okay, so blind pick mid it will have to be for Kuzan. Contemplating the Victor, could easily take something like a LeBlanc, but I think that ranged wave clear is going to be super important. They need some form of wave clear in the early game when you already have the Kalista and the Fiora on your side, so smart pick.
He has to even consider blind picking Cleanse or a very defensive summoner spell, just because he might have opted into mid laning against what was already on the board, which is Lissandra Rek'Sai. The moment that Lissandra starts with the ultimate, you're being locked down for days and burst down if you're Victor. Not the best matchup, but they're even thinking about a Coco special as a last pick.
That's right. We call him the Korean Sniper for a reason. An incredible Jace player. as many of you know from watching him on CJ and his last season. And the Corki Jace combination going to be quite potent when it comes to Siege, and that's what it's going to be. I love it. Great draft. Have the Trundle for some zone next to turrets, and you have great disengage with Lysandra, a couple forms of crowd control. I really like Longzhu's draft.
The Siege, when you're talking about putting down a Trundle pillar next to a turret, there's so much room that you can't move into. Suddenly, hitting those shock blasts is going to be a piece of cake. The rockets and shock blasts raining down with the Trundle and potentially the Lysandra to control zones means this is a fearsome Siege comp, and I feel like Siege is the way to win on patch 524.
Yeah, it is a major part, and with the relative lack of wave clear outside of Victor, could be problematic depending on where Victor is on the map. Where if Victor is dead, there's basically no way for Jin Air to defend turrets. So if they're going to win this game, they're going to have to win with a 4-1 split and hope that Fiora becomes that unstoppable late game split pusher. We saw KT do it yesterday. It's certainly a possibility.
Look for rotations from Expression to come lock down. He'll be in the top lane, but still, Kuzan is definitely the MVP. Take him down, the wave clear's gone, and if it's 15 to 25 minutes into the game, those turrets are going to be raining down.
Yeah, very exciting stuff. So, bit of a return to what we saw CJ do last season when they play around Coco's Jace pick. He's certainly one of the best Jace players ever. So, I always love seeing him on this pick. He's one of the few players that I really enjoy on it. Of course, Pawn, another one, but Jace from Coco, definitely a treat. So we'll see how it goes this game. New team, new teammates as we head into game 2. Longzhu Gaming versus the Jin Air Green Wings. Fans from both teams in the audience tonight as we head into the second game of this best of 3. Longzhu looking to close out their first series 2-0. There's a lot of expectations for this roster. He spent the offseason putting together what many of us consider a sort of Korean super team. And so a failure here against kind of a batch of rookies in Jin Air would be egg on the face for Longzhu as an organization who has spent a lot of money to assemble this team.
It took Chinese money to make a Korean super team, but we finally got it.
It's okay, SK Telecom still exists, Papa Smithy.
That's absolutely true. But you have to say that Longzhu and their willingness to spend money is what kept players like Flame, who we're not seeing this series, Chaser and Coco, theoretically at least, in the Korean scene. So we owe them a debt of gratitude to mean that the level of talent, you have to say the top 4 teams in Champions, you know, at least projected, have very impressive lineups across the board.
Yeah, absolutely. And even Fury too, who after being on Samsung all of last year would have been a prime target to move to another region. And in fact, the reason why he was banned was he was temporarily involved with TDK.
Literally involved in the act of moving to another region.
But in the end, he did end up signing with Longzhu, and that means that star player here, Captain Jack, did announce his intentions to go to university soon. So we'll have to see if he actually sticks around on this roster or whether he is the stopgap for the next month while Fury is banned from competitive play. But we assume that he'll be the starter. Of course, we did also assume that Flame would be the starter, so who knows at this point.
Every time we talk about Fury's potential move to NA, I'm reminded that OQ will be playing in the NACS this split.
Definitely scary for sure.
Sad also. I miss OQ already.
Well, maybe he'll be in the NALCS, Papa Smithy. Who
the
knows?
OQ moments will never end. Whether he's in the NALCS, the LCK, wherever he is, there will be OQ moments.
He wouldn't be OQ without the OQ moments, but certainly one of the most fantastically gifted AD carries when it comes to mechanics.
Do you realize his parting shot to Champions was trying to turret dive a Malphite as Ashe?
That was really sad, honestly.
But it's accurate also.
Accurate also. Trace made short work of him during that turret dive. Just simply ulting him with that Malphite. So, we do see here some very misleading statistics. Pilot has definitely played more than one Callista game. That is not true, so.
He's just a winner at Callista. Can't you just deal? It's on the screen, Monty. OGN approved.
Well, look up that stat.
I really like the team comps coming through because we focused on Longzhu and their amazing siege comp, put down the Trundle Pillar, walk up to a turret, rain it down with both magic damage and physical damage poke between Corki and Jace respectively. But let's talk a bit about Jin Air. The one thing that we were confirmed yesterday, we saw this Lissandra versus Fiora matchup. There is real outscale potential for the Fiora. So the 4-1, if they can keep Kuzan alive to wave clear, if this game is fairly even 25-30 minutes in, there's really not much answer from Longzhu to deal with the Fiora split push.
Yeah, Fiora, an absolute monster in that scenario. Something that not many teams are efficiently able to deal with in a late game situation. Let's take a look at the laning back here in the top side. No moves yet from either of our junglers onto the lanes, simply farming up for the time being. Wing now looks to get in for a lane gank here as the wave reverses and pushes back towards Jin Air's top side.
Still a pretty low percentage gank unless they really lay down some damage.
You do have the Trundle Pillar for just disengage, and Captain Jack, if he sees that cocoon flying at him, easily able to get out with a Valk. So playing far back right now, Longzhu is refusing to get aggressive, and that's going to be a lot of wasted time for Wing. Meanwhile, Chaser continues to power through his jungle.
Our farming Chaser, not on the champion we'd expect, not the Nidalee this time, but it's farming up his Rek'Sai.
Chilling Smites for both junglers. Seen a good amount of Tracker's Knife and Chilling Smite. Not a lot of Skirmisher Sabers so far in Korea.
See it in solo queue, but for now, Tracker's Knife makes a lot of sense when it comes to competitive play, at trying to get vision, specifically in champions that weren't going to pick up the Sightstone. Of course, Rek'Sai will itemize into that at some point, but when you're talking about the Kindreds that we saw yesterday, or the Nidalees that we will see at some point this season, Tracker's Knife, certainly a good option.
Definitely. So on here, falling behind early, of course. Lissandra is going to have an early advantage. Chaser's going to find Winged right here, and he's going to find a pink ward, dodges out of the cocoon, and doesn't trade particularly well.
Like just trying to create pressure to get rid of the pink ward.
And that is what he's going to get, especially with Jace pushed up. And here comes Coco. He's going to hammer Winged. Oh, Coco, there's the flash, and you've got nowhere to go, Winged. Crush the spider. Hit it with a hammer.
Doesn't need to be much of a sniper when he's just waiting for the face check, but waiting in the wings, much like Chaser was his teammate Coco, and they're not done.
They're not. Chaser just going to simply take a turret shot right here to delay the recall. So on. It's level 5, Expression's level 6, and you are about to get entombed, my friend.
Welcome to competitive play.
That's right. Welcome to competitive play. So on here under the turret. Expression going to ult himself. Chaser has a tunnel ready. Not going to take any more turret shots. Kuzan here will get some damage on the turret and some denial, but that's 2 kills for Coco early on. 2 kills for Coco on this Jace means very scary things for Jin Air when it comes to powering up this siege, because he's going to be able to skip pretty quickly up the item tree, and once he hits that power spike combined with Captain Jack's Trinity Force, it is going to be very difficult for Jin Air to stop, and they only trade about 1/3 damage on the turret for it.
Interested to see what he's turning this initial AD purchase into. It could be either the defensive choice in the more Malmortius or the Ghostblade, which would be the more offensive choice. Probably will end up with both items at some point this game, but always nice to see whether players are looking for that more aggressive choice. Is looking for the safer choice in competitive play. Is against effectively double AP with a jungle Elise.
Yeah. Does make sense. Play conservatively right now, take that lead and start running with it. Coco here being very deceptive, but man, getting into that jungle, he really just completely outplayed. And Winged making some pathing mistakes right there. You back off after losing that pink ward. You don't see that mid laner. You have to be very concerned, especially since Coco has a very quick recall time into lane because he did opt for a teleport.
And Chaser had already revealed himself. He was already waiting in one bush. The mid lane is missing, theoretically backing up his jungler, and the result was academic for Coco.
Yeah, Chaser, you could see one of the reasons why we really consider him the top jungler here in Korea, if not the very best, is because of his pathing and his intelligence on the map. And you can see how well he can chain these plays together, calling other players from his team over in order to make these plays. And It's resulting in a lot of pressure from Coco now with that blue buff and able to stack up that tier quite quickly. Sowan is in a world of trouble right now. There's the ult from Lissandra. Pure there, just a block off wing. They want more than one. Sowan on the run. Eventually he's going to think Janair trying to prioritize a Kalista that fell all the way through the draft in the last game.
I like Kalista with double ADs. For example, when we saw Corki coming through from SKT, the Kalista from Bang made a lot of sense in that scenario. It's just that her lack of siege means that I think you need to pick up the siege from one of the many AD champions that are viable right now in mid.
Yeah, and they are actually just going to grab the Kalista right off the bat, so definitely a big priority solo queue, but it's not going to happen. MF ban coming through, however.
Love to see some Graves. Chaser, that's what I want to see. I want to see Chaser move away from the Rex side. I want to see him return to what he's known for. It's carry jungling. Nidalee is a champion that I'm not the biggest fan of on patch 524, but still certainly in the realm of possibility, and specifically champions like Graves can be really powerful carries from the jungle.
All right, Fiora's still up. Was banned last game, and that would be a bit interesting on that champion. A bit surprisingly, they have let that Fiora through. That is something that Jinair banned in the first game of this series. Very interesting pivot. Trundle's still up too.
A powerful picks. Misfortune was one of the bans this game, but true AD carries, so excluding Kindred, all are available right now. Maybe we'll finally see that Ezreal we've spoken so much about.
Yeah, Lissandra could be the takeaway here.
Lissandra Lucian would be a decent 2 picks coming through.
Lots of choices, to be sure. So, waiting on this one, but Lissandra does seem overwhelmingly likely, considering Longzhu did ban it out last game, and it is a big flex pick here for Janair. And Lissandra Trundle. These were 2 Longzhu bans last game, so clearly putting a premium on these picks in the draft phase.
Coming back to IM Katowice, whatever was able to do on the red side was one of the highlights of that tournament for me. In this case, they weren't ahead, so it was just trying for something. So it was good to see them make a decisive shot call, but they're still growing into being the decisive team that's usually needed to win games in this meta.
That's right. Well, we are into game 2. Draft right now. Jinair on the blue side, and it will be a Kindred ban once again. You have a carry jungler like Chaser, you probably don't want him to have that. Now, interestingly, we talked about the possible prevalence of Graves jungle or Graves top in this particular matchup, because that was what Trace had been playing a lot of.